March 3, 1945, 0930 hours. Oberstein Ridge, overlooking the Rhine Valley. Through the morning haze that shrouded the German countryside, the massive silhouettes of 6 Tiger II tanks moved into their prepared positions, their 88mm KWK-43 guns trained on the river crossing below. The crew of Tiger 231, commanded by Hauptmann Friedrich Kellner, watched through their optics as 3 unknown American tanks approached the narrow bridge spanning the Rhine tributary. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. These weren't the familiar Shermans that German gunners had grown accustomed to engaging. These new tanks appeared heavier, more angular, with a distinctly different profile that seemed to promise greater protection. Yet the mathematics of armored warfare appeared unchanged. The Tiger II's fearsome 88mm gun could penetrate 180mm of armor at 1,500 meters. Its own frontal armor, a formidable 150mm thick and sloped at optimal angles, had proven virtually impenetrable to every Allied weapon encountered in combat. Whatever these new American tanks were, they couldn't possibly match the engineering superiority that had made the Tiger II the most feared tank on any battlefield. The engagement range was perfect at 1,200 meters, well within the optimal envelope for the long 88. Kellner's gunner, Obergefreiter Hans Müller, had achieved 12 confirmed kills against Allied armor in the past month alone. The outcome seemed predetermined by physics and engineering. Yet within 20 minutes, 5 of those 6 Tiger IIs would lie burning or abandoned on Oberstein Ridge. The 3 American tanks, later identified as M26 Pershing heavy tanks of the 14th Tank Battalion, would advance across the bridge unscathed, their frontal armor having deflected direct hits from the most powerful tank gun in the German arsenal. The shells that should have torn through steel plate like paper had bounced harmlessly off sloped armor that German intelligence had catastrophically underestimated. By the end of March 3rd, the fields around Oberstein would be littered with the wreckage of 14 German tanks and tank destroyers, while American losses stood at precisely 0 penetrations of Pershing frontal armor. The 14th Tank Battalion would advance 15 kilometers into German territory, crushing 3 separate defensive positions that had been considered impregnable by Wehrmacht planners. What unfolded at Oberstein wasn't merely a tactical surprise. It represented the complete collapse of German assumptions about American armored capability, assumptions that had governed Wehrmacht anti-tank doctrine since the invasion of Normandy. The shocked German survivors would discover they hadn't been engaging in improved Sherman. They had encountered a completely new class of American heavy tank that rendered their most powerful weapons inadequate. The German preparation for defending the Rhine approaches had been meticulous, born from the desperate knowledge that this river represented the last natural barrier protecting the industrial heart of the Reich. Oberstein Ridge commanded the entire valley, its slopes carefully prepared with dug-in positions for the 507th Heavy Tank Battalion's remaining Tiger IIs and the supporting Jagdpanzer tank destroyers of the 212th Anti-Tank Battalion. Hauptmann Kellner's 507th Heavy Tank Battalion represented the cream of German armored forces. Equipped with the Tiger II, officially designated Panzerkampfwagen 6 Ausführung B, this massive 69-ton vehicle mounted the legendary 88mm KWK-43 L71 gun, capable of penetrating any known Allied tank at ranges exceeding 2 kilometers. The Tiger II's Henschel turret design provided 180mm of frontal armor, sloped to maximize effective thickness against incoming rounds. German doctrine had evolved around this technical superiority. Tank engagements were conceived as long-range duels where superior German optics, gunnery training, and armor protection would systematically destroy Allied formations before they could close to effective range. The Zeiss TZF 9D telescopic sight provided magnification and clarity that exceeded anything in Allied service, while German range-finding techniques had been perfected through years of combat experience. The Tiger II crews at Oberstein had trained extensively in the defensive positions they now occupied. Each tank was positioned in a carefully constructed hull-down position, exposing only the heavily armored turret to enemy fire, while protecting the more vulnerable hull. Pre-calculated range cards identified every possible approach route, with firing data precisely determined for distances from 800 to 2,500 meters. Supporting the Tiger IIs were 6 Jagdpanzer 470 tank destroyers, mounting the same deadly 88mm gun in a fixed casemate that provided even thicker frontal armor. These vehicles, commanded by Major Wilhelm Kaisenberger, were positioned to provide overlapping fields of fire that would catch any Allied force attempting to advance through the valley. The mathematics seemed inescapable. Any tank attempting to cross the exposed ground would face concentrated fire from multiple 88mm guns at optimal range. German intelligence had provided detailed assessments of expected American opposition. The Sherman M4A3E8, equipped with the 76mm gun, represented the most capable American tank likely to be encountered. This weapon could penetrate approximately 110 millimeters of armor at 500 meters, insufficient to threaten the Tiger II frontally at any practical range. Even the rumored new American tank destroyer, the M26, with its 90mm gun, could only penetrate 140 millimeters at point-blank range, still inadequate against the Tiger II's 180mm frontal protection. The defensive plan called for engaging American forces at maximum range, using the superior reach of the 88mm gun to destroy attackers before they could respond effectively. German crews had been briefed to expect the familiar tactics of Sherman formations: rapid advance under smoke cover, attempting to close range where their numerical superiority could overcome German technical advantages. The solution was simple: destroy the leading elements at long range, forcing the Americans to withdraw or attempt costly frontal assaults against prepared positions. Kellner himself embodied the Wehrmacht's professional excellence in armored warfare. A veteran of campaigns in Poland, France, and the Eastern Front, he had commanded tanks since 1940 and had personally accounted for over 30 enemy vehicles destroyed. His crew represented similar experience levels, with gunner Müller having served continuously since the French campaign, and loader Feldwebel Ernst Richard being a decorated veteran of Kursk. The Tiger II that Kellner commanded, Tactical Number 231, was one of the later production models featuring the improved transmission and final drive systems that had addressed early mechanical problems. This particular vehicle had been delivered to the unit in January 1945 and had undergone extensive crew training and mechanical preparation. With only 847 kilometers on the odometer, the tank was in optimal mechanical condition, a rarity in German units by this stage of the war. German defensive doctrine in Oberstein reflected lessons learned from months of fighting Allied armored forces. The Americans had demonstrated consistent patterns: aggressive frontal attacks supported by overwhelming artillery and air power, reliance on numerical superiority rather than technical excellence, and tactical flexibility that compensated for inferior individual tank performance. The German response emphasized maximizing their qualitative advantages through superior positioning and gunnery. The 88mm KWK-43 gun that armed the Tiger II represented the pinnacle of German anti-tank technology. Its armor-piercing rounds, the Panzergranate 3943, achieved muzzle velocities of 1,000 meters per second and could penetrate 180 millimeters of armor at 1,500 meters. At the expected engagement,
preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
Ranges around Oberstein. This weapon could destroy any known Allied tank with a single well-placed shot. German ammunition quality had been maintained despite industrial bombing, with precision-manufactured rounds ensuring consistent ballistic performance. The tactical situation on the morning of March 3rd seemed to favor German preparations perfectly. Weather conditions provided clear visibility with light winds that wouldn't affect long-range gunnery. The American approach route was predictable, constrained by terrain to the valley floor, where German guns commanded every meter of ground. Intelligence reports indicated American forces in the area consisted primarily of Sherman tanks, with some supporting elements, exactly the opposition that German doctrine was designed to counter. As the first American tanks appeared through the morning haze, German observers initially dismissed them as another variant of the familiar Sherman design.
The approaching vehicles appeared larger and more angular than standard Shermans, but American tank development had produced numerous modifications and variants throughout the war. The basic tactical situation remained unchanged: 3 isolated tanks advancing across open ground against prepared positions, mounting the most powerful anti-tank guns in the world. Kellner's crew went through their well-rehearsed engagement sequence. Mueller identified the lead American tank through his sight, estimating range at 1,200 meters. The range was confirmed through the coincidence rangefinder integrated into the commander's cupola. Ammunition selection was obvious: Panzergranate 3943 armor-piercing rounds, designed specifically for destroying heavily armored targets. The firing solution was calculated based on range, target angle, and environmental conditions. The first shot from Tiger 231 was textbook perfect. Mueller's years of experience and the precision of German optical equipment combined to place the 88mm round exactly on target, striking the lead American tank squarely in the center of its frontal armor. The crew expected to see the familiar sight of catastrophic armor penetration, secondary explosions, and the immediate destruction of the enemy vehicle. Instead, the impossible happened. The 88mm armor-piercing round, capable of penetrating any known Allied tank, struck the American tank's frontal armor and ricocheted harmlessly into the ground. The enemy tank, rather than exploding or catching fire, continued its advance without any apparent damage. Mueller blinked in disbelief, wondering if his optics had somehow deceived him about the shot placement. A second round followed within 15 seconds, this one striking slightly lower on the target tank's frontal slope. Again, the impossible result. The shell deflected off the armor without penetration, leaving only a bright metal streak to mark the impact point. The American tank's gun traversed toward Tiger 231's position, and Kellner suddenly realized his crew was facing something entirely outside their experience. The American return fire came from a gun that German intelligence had never properly identified. The projectile that struck Tiger 231's frontal armor was larger and more powerful than anything previously encountered from American tanks. The 90mm T-15E1 armor-piercing round, fired from the M26 Pershing's M3 gun, penetrated the Tiger II's frontal armor with shocking ease, passing through 180mm of steel that had been considered invulnerable. The penetration occurred at the junction between the turret front and the gun mantlet, precisely where German armor design was most vulnerable to high-velocity rounds striking at optimal angles. The tungsten-cored American projectile maintained its integrity through the armor, creating a shower of metal fragments and spall that killed Mueller instantly and severely wounded Richter. Kellner, partially protected by his position in the commander's cupola, survived long enough to give the order to abandon the vehicle. As Tiger 231 burned, the engagement expanded to include the remaining German tanks.
Oberstein Ridge. Each commander faced the same impossible situation. Their most powerful weapons were proving ineffective against American armor that should have been vulnerable to penetration. The Tiger II, commanded by Oberleutnant Gustav Brenner, achieved 3 direct hits on the second American tank at ranges under 1,000 meters, only to watch each shot ricochet harmlessly off sloped frontal armor. The psychological impact of this reversal cannot be overstated. German tank crews had grown accustomed to technical superiority that guaranteed tactical success in properly executed engagements. The Tiger II had been encountered by Allied forces throughout 1944 and early 1945 without a single instance of frontal armor penetration by tank guns. German crews operated with the confidence that their frontal armor was impenetrable and their gun was irresistible. The M26 Pershing tanks advancing across Oberstein Valley represented a fundamental shift in American armored capability that German intelligence had completely failed to detect. These vehicles mounted frontal armor up to 102 millimeters thick, but more critically, the armor was sloped at angles that dramatically increased effective thickness. The front hull slope of 46 degrees increased the effective armor thickness to approximately 140 millimeters, while the complex angles of the turret front could deflect even the powerful 88mm rounds under certain impact conditions. The Pershing's own armament, the 90mm M3 gun, represented a quantum leap in American anti-tank capability.
This weapon fired armor-piercing rounds at velocities approaching those of the German 88mm, but with improved projectile design that enhanced penetration characteristics. The T-33 armor-piercing capped round could penetrate 160 millimeters of armor at 1,000 meters, sufficient to defeat the Tiger II's frontal protection under favorable conditions. More significantly, the Pershing crews had been extensively trained in engaging German heavy tanks, with specific emphasis on identifying weak points in Tiger II armor. American tank gunnery schools had analyzed captured German vehicles and developed tactical techniques specifically designed to exploit vulnerabilities in what had previously seemed like invincible protection. These crews understood exactly where to aim for maximum effect. The 3rd American Tank, commanded by Captain Robert McKenzie of the 14th Tank Battalion, demonstrated the tactical integration that made the Pershing truly formidable. Rather than engaging in a static gunnery duel, McKenzie maneuvered his tank to exploit terrain features that provided partial cover while maintaining offensive capability. This tactical flexibility, combined with the Pershing's improved protection, allowed American crews to dictate engagement terms for the first time in encounters with German heavy tanks. The engagement at Oberstein Ridge revealed another critical American advantage: superior crew training and rapid engagement techniques. While German crews followed methodical procedures designed for precision long-range shooting, American tank crews had been trained to acquire targets quickly and engage with rapid, accurate fire at medium ranges. The Pershing's gun control system, while not as sophisticated as German equipment, was designed for faster target engagement and higher rates of fire. As the battle on Oberstein Ridge continued, the pattern became clear to German observers. Their most powerful weapons were inadequate against American armor that had been specifically designed to counter German advantages. The tactical situation that German doctrine had been built around, long-range engagements where technical specifications determined outcomes, was being systematically negated by American vehicles that could survive hits and return effective fire. The Jagdpanzer 470 tank destroyers under Major Hasenberger's command attempted to engage the American tanks from their concealed positions, but encountered the same devastating results. Their 88mm guns, identical to those mounted in the Tiger IIs, proved equally ineffective against Pershing armor, while the abysmal slant plates of their superstructure proved even worse.
Frontal armor. The fixed-mount weapons that had been advantages in previous engagements became liabilities when facing mobile targets that could maneuver to exploit the limited traverse of casement-mounted guns. By 1,000 hours, the defensive position that had been considered impregnable was in complete collapse. 4 Tiger IIs and 3 Jagdpanzers had been destroyed or abandoned, their crews either killed or forced to evacuate burning vehicles. The surviving German tanks were withdrawing from positions they had spent weeks preparing, unable to effectively engage American forces that had demonstrated clear superiority in both protection and firepower. The tactical implications extended far beyond the immediate engagement. German defensive doctrine throughout the Western Front had been based on the presumption that Tiger II tanks could destroy any American armored force through superior gunnery at long range. The revelation that American tanks could not only survive direct hits from 88mm guns, but could successfully engage and destroy German heavy tanks fundamentally undermined the strategic assumptions governing Wehrmacht defensive planning. Captain Mackenzie's after-action report, filed with 14th Tank Battalion headquarters that evening, provided the first detailed analysis of Persian performance against German heavy tanks in combat conditions. His assessment confirmed that the M26's frontal armor provided effective protection against the feared 88mm gun at typical engagement ranges, while the 90mm main gun could successfully penetrate Tiger II armor when shots were properly placed. The intelligence value of the Oberstein engagement was immediately recognized by American commanders. For the first time, American forces had achieved tactical parity with German heavy tanks in direct combat.
eliminating the technological advantage that had made Tiger IIs such formidable opponents throughout 1944. The psychological impact on German morale was equally significant, as word of the engagement spread through Wehrmacht units facing American advances. The surviving German tank crews who managed to escape from Oberstein Ridge carried with them a devastating realization. The technical superiority that had been the foundation of German armor doctrine was no longer absolute. American industry had produced tanks capable of matching German engineering excellence, backed by tactical doctrine that maximized these new capabilities. The implications for future defensive operations were catastrophic. Hauptmann Kellner, evacuated to a field hospital with severe burns, provided detailed debriefing to Wehrmacht intelligence officers attempting to understand what had occurred. His account described American tanks that deflected direct hits from 88mm guns, while returning accurate fire that penetrated Tiger II frontal armor. To German officers accustomed to reports of American technical inferiority, Kellner's testimony seemed almost incredible. The Battle of Oberstein Ridge had lasted less than 30 minutes, but its consequences would reverberate through German defensive planning for the remainder of the war. American forces had demonstrated that they possessed heavy tanks capable of defeating German armor in direct combat, eliminating the tactical advantages that had allowed outnumbered German units to hold defensive positions throughout the previous year. Intelligence analysis conducted by Wehrmacht headquarters in the days following Oberstein struggled to understand the implications of American heavy tank deployment. German technical intelligence had been aware of American heavy tank development, but had consistently underestimated both the timeline for deployment and the effectiveness of the final product. The assumption that American industry could produce quantity but not quality had been fundamentally disproven. The M26 Pershing represented more than improved American technology. It embodied a complete shift in American approach to armored warfare. Previous American tanks had relied on numerical superiority and tactical flexibility to overcome German technical advantages. The Pershing provided American crews with protection and firepower that could match German vehicles in direct combat, fundamentally altering the tactical calculus that had governed armored engagements. The crew training that accompanied Pershing deployment was equally revolutionary. American tank crews had received extensive instruction in engaging German heavy tanks, with specific emphasis on exploiting weak points in Tiger II armor. This training, combined with improved ammunition types and fire control systems, created American tank crews capable of consistently defeating German armor that had previously been considered invulnerable. The industrial implications of Pershing production were equally significant. American factories had demonstrated the ability to design, develop, and mass-produce heavy tanks that matched German engineering excellence while maintaining the reliability and maintainability that had characterized all American armored vehicles. This combination of technical capability and industrial capacity represented a decisive advantage that German production could not match. The engagement at Oberstein Ridge marked the beginning of a new phase in armored warfare on the Western Front. German defensive positions that had been considered impregnable due to Tiger II deployment were suddenly vulnerable to American attack by forces equipped with comparable technology. The tactical advantages that had allowed German armor to achieve favorable exchange rates against numerically superior American forces were effectively neutralized. The psychological impact on German tank crews cannot be understated. The Tiger II had represented invincibility in combat against Allied armor, providing crews with confidence that proper tactical employment would guarantee survival and success. The revelation that American tanks could not only survive direct hits from 88mm guns, but could successfully destroy Tiger IIs in return, fundamentally shattered this psychological foundation. As news of the Oberstein engagement spread through German armored units, the implications became clear. American forces possessed heavy tanks capable of engaging German armor on equal terms, backed by the industrial capacity to deploy these vehicles in significant numbers. The technical superiority that had been the cornerstone of German armored doctrine was no longer a decisive advantage in combat. The systematic revelation of American armored superiority at Oberstein Ridge represented just the beginning of a comprehensive transformation in Western Front warfare. Within hours of the engagement, Wehrmacht intelligence officers were frantically attempting to understand the implications of what their surviving tank crews reported. The account seemed incredible to German commanders who had built their entire defensive strategy around Tiger II invincibility. The M26 Pershing's frontal armor protection had been achieved through revolutionary design principles that German engineering had not anticipated. American metallurgists at the Watertown Arsenal had developed improved steel alloys that provided superior ballistic resistance while maintaining reasonable weight characteristics. The armor plates themselves were manufactured using advanced casting techniques that eliminated weak points common in earlier American tank designs. The critical breakthrough lay in the combination of armor thickness and slope angles that maximized effective protection. The Pershing's front hull featured 102 millimeters of armor sloped at 46 degrees, creating an effective thickness approaching 150 millimeters when calculated for ballistic impact. More significantly, the complex angles of the turret front incorporated multiple sloped surfaces that could deflect even perfectly aimed shots from the German 88mm gun under specific impact conditions. German ballistics experts who examined the Oberstein battlefield in the days following the engagement were stunned by the evidence of 88mm round deflections.
Fulmer, the Wehrmacht's leading authority on armor penetration, personally inspected the impact marks on abandoned American tanks and concluded that German ammunition was performing exactly as designed, but encountering armor protection that exceeded all previous intelligence estimates. The 88mm KWK-43 rounds found embedded in the ground around Oberstein Ridge told a story of ballistic physics that challenged fundamental German assumptions about armor penetration. The tungsten core Panzergranate 3943 rounds had struck Pershing armor with sufficient velocity to achieve penetration under normal circumstances, but the combination of improved steel quality and optimal slope angles had caused the projectiles to deflect rather than penetrate. American industrial capacity had enabled the production of specialized ammunition types that dramatically enhanced the Pershing's offensive capability. The T-33 armor-piercing capped ballistic cap round incorporated design features specifically intended to defeat German heavy tank armor. The projectile's hardened steel cap was designed to bite into armor surfaces, preventing deflection, while the main penetrator maintained trajectory through thick steel plate. The tungsten carbide core of advanced American ammunition provided superior penetration characteristics compared to earlier projectiles. This strategic material, carefully allocated to priority ammunition production, enabled American 90mm rounds to achieve penetration performance that rivaled the German 88mm despite the smaller caliber. The metallurgical quality of American projectiles had reached parity with German standards while being produced in vastly greater quantities. Captain Mackenzie's detailed combat report provided American intelligence with comprehensive data on Pershing performance against German heavy tanks. His gunner, Sergeant Thomas Mitchell, had achieved 3 confirmed penetrations of Tiger II frontal armor at ranges between 800 and 1,200 meters. Each successful engagement had required precise shot placement and optimal impact angles, but the results proved that German heavy tank invulnerability was no longer absolute. The tactical doctrine accompanying Pershing deployment emphasized aggressive close-range engagement that maximized American advantages while minimizing German strengths. American tank crews had been trained to use terrain and maneuver to close range rapidly, negating the German preference for long-range precision shooting. This tactical approach transformed the technological capabilities of the Pershing into decisive battlefield advantages. The psychological impact of successful Pershing deployment extended throughout German armored forces with devastating effect. Tiger II crews who had operated with complete confidence in their invulnerability suddenly faced the prospect of engaging American tanks capable of destroying them in direct combat. The fundamental assumptions underlying German tactical doctrine had been shattered by American industrial and technological achievement.
Wehrmacht intelligence analysis of captured Pershing components revealed the depth of American technological advancement in armored vehicle design. The transmission systems incorporated improvements that addressed reliability problems that had plagued earlier American tank designs. The engine compartment featured enhanced cooling systems that enabled sustained high-speed operation under combat conditions. Every component reflected industrial expertise that German analysts had consistently underestimated. The fire control systems integrated into the Pershing represented another area where American technology had achieved unexpected sophistication. The gun sight incorporated range-finding capabilities that enabled rapid target acquisition at typical combat ranges. The stabilization systems allowed accurate firing while moving, a capability that German heavy tanks lacked due to their emphasis on stationary precision shooting. German tank crews attempting to engage Pershing tanks discovered that angled armor consistently deflected their projectiles, while the American tanks' fire-on-the-move capability allowed them to escape German tanks' slowly traversing guns.
That their traditional tactical advantages had been systematically neutralized. The German preference for long-range engagement became irrelevant when American armor could survive direct hits and return effective fire. The elaborate range-finding procedures that German crews had perfected became liabilities when facing opponents capable of rapid target acquisition and engagement. The industrial implications of Pershing production represented a strategic nightmare for German planners already struggling with resource shortages and production bottlenecks. American factories were producing heavy tanks that matched German technical standards while maintaining the reliability and maintainability that characterized all American military equipment. This combination of quality and quantity represented an insurmountable advantage in sustained combat operations. The training programs that prepared American tank crews for Pershing operation incorporated lessons learned from years of combat against German armor. Crew members received extensive instruction in German tank identification, weak point location, and engagement techniques optimized for their specific weapon systems. This systematic approach to crew preparation multiplied the effectiveness of improved technology through superior tactical employment. The logistical systems supporting Pershing deployment demonstrated American capability to maintain sophisticated equipment under combat conditions. Spare parts production had been coordinated with vehicle manufacturing to ensure adequate supply of critical components. Maintenance manuals provided detailed procedures that enabled field repairs under adverse conditions. The entire support infrastructure reflected industrial planning that German forces could no longer match. The strategic impact of Pershing deployment became apparent as German defensive positions throughout the Western Front faced the prospect of engaging American heavy tanks capable of defeating their most powerful weapons. The Tiger II battalions that had been the backbone of German defensive planning suddenly found their technological advantages neutralized by American vehicles that could engage them on equal terms. German attempts to counter the Pershing threat revealed the limitations of their remaining industrial capacity. Proposals for improved ammunition types could not be implemented due to tungsten shortages and production constraints. Plans for enhanced armor protection were abandoned due to transportation limitations. The German war economy lacked the resources to respond effectively to American technological achievements. The crew survival characteristics of the Pershing represented another significant advantage over German heavy tanks. The internal layout provided multiple escape routes that enabled crew evacuation under combat conditions. The ammunition storage systems incorporated safety features that reduced the likelihood of catastrophic internal explosions. These design considerations reflected American emphasis on crew survivability that German engineers had not prioritized. The battlefield mobility of the Pershing proved superior to German heavy tanks in the varied terrain conditions encountered during the advance into Germany. The lower ground pressure and more reliable transmission systems enabled sustained movement across soft ground that immobilized heavier German vehicles. This mobility advantage allowed American forces to dictate engagement conditions and exploit tactical opportunities.
The communication systems integrated into Pershing tanks provided superior coordination capabilities compared to German heavy tank installations. Multiple radio sets enabled simultaneous communication with supporting units while maintaining command and control networks. This communication superiority allowed American tank formations to coordinate complex tactical movements that overwhelmed German defensive positions. The ammunition capacity of the Pershing enabled sustained combat engagement without the need for frequent resupply. The Pershing could carry a larger complement of high-explosive and armor-piercing rounds than German heavy tanks, allowing them to remain engaged for extended periods.
Combat operations that German heavy tanks could not match. The larger internal volume accommodated more rounds of main gun ammunition, along with adequate supplies of machine gun ammunition for anti-personnel defense. This logistical advantage proved decisive in extended engagements where German heavy tanks exhausted their ammunition supplies. The mechanical reliability of the Pershing under combat conditions demonstrated American engineering solutions to problems that continued to plague German heavy tank designs. The transmission systems incorporated design margins that prevented failure under the stress of combat maneuvering. The engine cooling systems maintained optimal operating temperatures even during sustained high-speed operation. These reliability characteristics multiplied combat effectiveness by ensuring vehicle availability. The crew ergonomics of the Pershing reflected American attention to human factors that enhanced combat performance. The driver position provided superior visibility and control compared to German heavy tank designs. The gunner station incorporated features that reduced fatigue during extended combat operations. The commander position enabled effective battlefield awareness while maintaining protection from enemy fire. The maintenance requirements of the Pershing were designed to be compatible with field conditions and available technical expertise. Critical components could be replaced without specialized tools or factory-level facilities. Preventative maintenance procedures were simplified to reduce time requirements and technical skill demands. This maintainability advantage ensured high operational readiness rates under combat conditions. The production scalability of Pershing manufacturing demonstrated American industrial capacity to rapidly increase output when tactical requirements demanded heavier tanks. The factory tooling and workforce training could be expanded to meet increased demand without compromising quality standards. This production flexibility provided strategic advantages that German industry could not duplicate given their resource constraints and bombing damage. The technological integration achieved in the Pershing represented the culmination of American learning from years of armored combat experience. Design features incorporated lessons learned from Sherman tank operations while addressing specific deficiencies identified in combat against German heavy tanks. This systematic approach to improvement created a vehicle that matched German technical standards while retaining American advantages in reliability and maintainability. The tactical flexibility enabled by Pershing deployment allowed American commanders to employ aggressive strategies that had been impossible with earlier tank designs. The capability to engage German heavy tanks in direct combat eliminated the need for complex flanking maneuvers and time-consuming artillery preparations. This tactical simplification accelerated the pace of American advances while reducing casualties and logistical demands. The strategic implications of Pershing's success extended beyond immediate battlefield advantages to influence post-war armored vehicle development. The design principles validated at Oberstein Ridge established templates for heavy tank development that would influence American armored vehicle design for decades. The integration of protection, firepower, and mobility demonstrated at Oberstein became the standard for evaluating future tank designs. The intelligence gathered from Pershing combat operations provided comprehensive data on German heavy tank vulnerabilities that had not been previously identified. The precise impact points and penetration mechanisms documented in combat reports enabled improved ammunition design and tactical procedures. This intelligence advantage multiplied the effectiveness of existing weapons while guiding development of future anti-tank systems. The crew confidence generated by Pershing combat success remains a significant aspect of its legacy. The faith and capabilities of the Pershing believed crew members to match the combat performance of German heavy tanks, which immensely boosted morale and psyche.
The perception of technical superiority prevented psychological effects of enemy fire and vehicle damage on crew members. These psychological advantages contributed to sustained combat effectiveness even in high-stress engagements. The legendary status of Pershing's success has continued to inspire generations of American soldiers who serve in armored vehicle units. The stories of teamwork and courage from Pershing combat operations provide motivation for modern crew members to cultivate similar characteristics. The inspiration from Pershing's success helps maintain morale and commitment among American soldiers even in times of peace. The impact of direct orders from General George S. Patton, Jr. to expand Pershing deployment in battle cannot be overstated. Patton's persistent requests to allow more Pershing units in combat demonstrated his understanding of the significance of Pershing's success to the overall American war effort.
Had psychological effects that enhanced American tactical performance beyond the immediate advantages of improved technology. Tank crews operating with knowledge that their vehicles could survive combat with German heavy tanks fought more aggressively and took tactical risks that had been prohibitive with earlier equipment. This psychological advantage translated directly into improved battlefield performance. The German response to Pershing deployment revealed the limitations of their remaining technological and industrial resources. Attempts to develop countermeasures were constrained by material shortages, production limitations, and transportation difficulties. The gap between German capabilities and American achievements had grown beyond the point where German industry could develop effective responses within the time frame of the war. The logistics revolution that supported Pershing deployment demonstrated American capability to maintain sophisticated equipment under the demanding conditions of sustained combat operations. The spare parts supply system ensured availability of critical components despite the complexity of the vehicle systems. The fuel supply networks accommodated the higher consumption rates of heavy tanks without compromising operational flexibility. The training infrastructure that prepared American crews for Pershing operations reflected systematic approaches to skill development that German training programs could no longer match. The standardized procedures and consistent equipment configurations enabled rapid crew replacement and unit reorganization under combat conditions. This training system multiplied the effectiveness of technological improvements through superior crew preparation. The industrial coordination that enabled successful Pershing production demonstrated American capability to integrate complex manufacturing processes across multiple facilities and suppliers. The quality control systems ensured consistent performance standards despite the distributed nature of production. This industrial integration created manufacturing capabilities that German industry could not replicate under wartime constraints. The battlefield survivability of Pershing crews represented a humanitarian advantage that enhanced long-term military effectiveness through reduced personnel losses. The escape systems and internal protection features significantly improved crew survival rates compared to earlier American tank designs. This survivability advantage preserved experienced personnel who could train replacement crews and maintain unit effectiveness. The technological legacy of Pershing development established American leadership in heavy tank design that would influence armored warfare for generations. The engineering solutions developed for the Pershing program created technological foundations that supported post-war armored vehicle development. This technological inheritance provided strategic advantages that extended far beyond the immediate requirements of World War II combat. The strategic transformation represented by successful Pershing deployment marked the end of German technological superiority in armored warfare. American industry had demonstrated the capability to produce weapon systems that matched German technical standards while maintaining the reliability and maintainability that characterized American military equipment. This achievement fundamentally altered the strategic balance on the Western Front. The tactical revolution enabled by Pershing deployment allowed American forces to engage German heavy tanks with confidence in the outcome of direct combat. The psychological advantages of technological parity, combined with numerical superiority, created battlefield conditions that German forces could not counter effectively. This tactical superiority accelerated the collapse of German defensive positions throughout the Western Front.
The lessons learned from Persian combat operations provided invaluable insights into the future of armored warfare that would influence technological development for upcoming conflicts.
Influence military doctrine for decades. The importance of balanced design that integrated protection, firepower, and mobility became fundamental principles for tank development. The necessity of crew survivability and mechanical reliability gained recognition as essential characteristics for effective armored vehicles. German tank crews who survived encounters with Pershing tanks carried back reports that shattered the confidence of Wehrmacht armored units throughout the Western Front. The revelation that American industry had produced heavy tanks capable of defeating Tiger IIs in direct combat eliminated the technological advantages that had sustained German defensive operations. This psychological defeat proved as devastating as the tactical losses inflicted by American armor. The intelligence analysis conducted by both sides following Pershing's combat debut provided comprehensive assessments of the changing character of armored warfare. American intelligence confirmed the effectiveness of their new heavy tank while identifying areas for further improvement. German intelligence struggled to develop countermeasures for American technological achievements that exceeded their industrial capacity to implement. The production achievements that enabled Pershing deployment demonstrated American industrial superiority that German planners had consistently underestimated throughout the war. The capability to design, develop, and mass-produce sophisticated heavy tanks while maintaining quality standards reflected industrial expertise that German industry could not match under wartime conditions. Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.